Coming live from the Tivoli Met Radio studio here on Auraria campus, this is All Sports with Gerardo. Thank you for listening to All Sports through Met Radio on mymetmedia.com, live every Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. This is your host, Gerardo, and all I talk is sports. On the show today, I am going to talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, college basketball, soccer, and alpine skiing. So before I start the show, I hope you all had a great week. To start off with alpine skiing, American alpine skier racer Lindsey Vonn has called it a career, and she announced she is retiring from alpine skiing. Lindsey Vonn was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and she moved to Vail, Colorado at a young age so she could pursue a career in alpine skiing. Lindsey Vonn was in many races throughout her career. She was in the U.S. Olympics in 2002, 2006, 2010, and 2018. She was in many world championships and World Cups, and throughout her career, she won many medals and titles. Lindsey Vonn is 34 years old, and she knew it was time to retire from alpine skiing since she has had many injuries in the last few years that have kept her out of competing in races, and she missed parts of several seasons. Lindsey Vonn was also a role model for young women that wanted to pursue a career in alpine skiing. Lindsey Vonn is one of the best women alpine skiers of all time. Congrats to Lindsey Vonn for having a great career in alpine skiing. Moving on now to Major League Baseball. The two names that I'm going to mention, the only word I got to say right now is finally. So, Bryce Harper and the Phillies have agreed to a 13-year, $330 million contract. Nolan Arenado and the Rockies have agreed to an 8-year, $260 million extension. So for Bryce Harper, throughout the offseason, he met with many different teams, which included the Nationals, the Phillies, the Padres, the Giants, the Dodgers. And the race between what team Bryce Harper was going to go to came down to the last few weeks, and the front runners came down to the Phillies, the Dodgers, and the Giants. Throughout the offseason, the Phillies were the front runner because they had stated they were going to give him a max contract, and they were willing to give Bryce Harper what he wanted so he would be on the Phillies. But the Dodgers also came into the mix as well, saying that they also wanted Bryce Harper, but it would be a short-term contract. So Bryce Harper finally made his decision today, and he signed with the Philadelphia Phillies, and he also has one of the largest contracts in all of baseball. It's even bigger than Giancarlo Stanton, the one that he signed with the Marlins before he got traded to the Yankees. Bryce Harper is definitely going to impact the Phillies. The Phillies were making many moves throughout the offseason to make their team better. They were a great team last year up until September, and then they kind of fell apart. They were leading the National League East, and they almost made the playoffs. But this year, expect the Phillies to be in the playoffs. And that National League East is going to be very competitive. Not only did the Phillies make a bunch of moves acquiring Bryce Harper, JT Romero, Andrew McCutchen, they already had a decent team, which included Jake Arrieta, Aaron Nola. The Phillies started making moves last offseason. They did it this offseason, so they're ready to compete, get into the playoffs this year, and potentially even get into the World Series. So we're going to have to wait and see what the Phillies do. The National League East is going to be competitive, like I said. You're going to have the Mets that made a bunch of moves, which included Robinson Cano and Edwin Diaz. You got the Nationals that acquired Patrick Corbin. That's going to be a decent team. The Mets are going to be a better team. The Braves, that's a young team as well. That team was very good last year. That's going to be another team in the race. Except for the Marlins, the National League East is going to be between all four of the other teams. It's going to be very competitive, and I'm definitely looking forward to this upcoming baseball season. Now for Nolan Arenado, signing this extension with the Rockies, this was one of the best things that could have happened for the Rockies. I'm glad this finally happened. He did sign that one-year contract to avoid attribution. But the two sides were negotiating a deal that would keep Nolan Arenado in a Rockies uniform, because if they didn't sign this deal, he would have been able to become a free agent this offseason and test free agency. And the Yankees, the Dodgers, and a lot of other big market teams would have been after Nolan Arenado. You don't want to lose this type of player. He's a once-in-a-lifetime player, once in a generation. There's not another Nolan Arenado out there. He's definitely one of the best third basemen and one of the best players in all of baseball right now. So it would be very hard to replace Nolan Arenado and try to find another. They don't come up that often. So this was a good move by the Rockies. Also, Rockies manager Bud Black has agreed to a 3-year extension through the 2022 season. With the Rockies going into the postseason back-to-back seasons under Bud Black, they're hoping that third time's a charm and they can get back into the postseason this year and maybe make it past the divisional round, get to the championship series, maybe the World Series. The Rockies have a better team this year. They look like they're going to be great. They have different players on the team. They lost some players during free agency, but I still expect the Rockies to compete. The National League West is definitely going to be a competitive division. Their Dodgers is going to be the Dodgers is definitely going to be their competition. So we're going to have to keep an eye out there, but expect the Rockies to compete for the postseason, maybe win the National League West for the first time in franchise history. Aaron Hicks signed a 7-year extension with the Yankees. Marwin Gonzalez and the Twins have agreed to a 2-year contract. Jose Ramirez and the Cardinals have agreed to a 2-year contract. Jose Iglesias and the Reds have agreed to a minor league deal. Believe it or not, opening day is 1 month away. I can't wait for this upcoming baseball season. Spring training's underway. Today's the last day of February. March is finally coming up. Starts tomorrow. So 1 more month, we get to finally see some real baseball be played. And now that we're in March, there's still a couple big name free agents still available. But I'm finally glad that Bryce Harper and Manny Machado are not on this list anymore. Right now, I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NFL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NFL football. Patriots owner Robert Kraft has been charged with soliciting another to commit prostitution, and he is being charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of first-degree solicitation of prostitution in Palm Beach County, Florida. Robert Kraft is one of the 25 people that are being charged as part of a months-long investigation. He has pled not guilty, but if he is convicted, he can face a year in jail, 100 hours of community service, and penalties from the NFL. So this is an ongoing investigation, and we're going to have to wait and see what happens. According to Denver police, Demarius Thomas has been arrested for a vehicle assault charge, driving without proof of insurance, and reckless driving from a single vehicle rollover crash that took place on Auraria Parkway near 12th Street in downtown Denver on February 16. Demarius Thomas had 2 passengers in the vehicle, and after the rollover crash, everyone was taken to the hospital to be treated for non-life-threatening injuries. This is also another ongoing investigation, and we're going to have to wait and see what happens here as well. According to multiple reports, the Raiders are going to remain in Oakland for the 2019 season, and the Raiders will have the option to play the 2020 season in Oakland if the Las Vegas Stadium isn't ready for the 2020 season. In 2020, the Raiders are expected to relocate to their new stadium in Las Vegas. That's definitely going to be a nice stadium and a huge upgrade for the Raiders, relocating to Las Vegas to a new stadium and being in a new city. So I can't wait for the Raiders to move to Las Vegas and be called the Las Vegas Raiders. Jason Witten has decided to end his retirement and return back to the Cowboys for his 16th season after being a Monday Night Football analyst for ESPN last season. Jason Witten is one of the best Cowboy players, and he holds the record for the most career receptions, career receiving yards, receptions in a game, games played, consecutive games, and starts for the Cowboys. Case Keenum was shocked when he learned about the Joe Flacco trade. He was actually surprised that the Broncos went after another quarterback because he expected to be the quarterback himself. He has a 2-year contract. He thought he was going to be the quarterback under center, but the Broncos had other plans to go after another quarterback. They wanted to go after quarterback Nick Foles, but the Eagles really didn't know what they wanted to do, so the Ravens looked like they were going to move on from Joe Flacco since they drafted Lamar Jackson in the first round of last year's draft. And after Lamar Jackson played for the Ravens this past season, the Ravens didn't start out the season great. And with Lamar Jackson, the season turned around. They had a winning season. They landed up winning the AFC North and getting into the playoffs, but they did lose to the Chargers in the wild card game. But for the Ravens, they definitely look like they have a bright future. Their new franchise quarterback, Lamar Jackson, he's going to have a great career in the NFL and for the Ravens. So for Case Keenum, we're going to have to wait and see. The new league year does not start until March 13th, so nothing's official quite yet. Even this Joe Flacco trade's not official. That's why the Broncos and the Ravens weren't posting about it. They have to wait till March 13th. John Elway stated that he wants Case Keenum to stay in a Broncos uniform and be the backup quarterback if he would like to. But very likely Case Keenum doesn't want to be the backup quarterback, and he's going to try to see what other team he's going to play on for the 2019 season. So we're going to have to wait and see. But because of the salary cap that the Broncos have, and having to pay 2 quarterbacks that have the high salary that both Joe Flacco brings and what Case Keenum has, I don't think that the Broncos are going to hold on to Case Keenum because a lot of the money would be going to 2 quarterbacks and one of them would be sitting on the bench. The Broncos are going to pick up Emmanuel Sanders and Derek Wolf's contract options for the 2019 season. Bradley Roby is going to become a free agent. Domata Peko is going to become a free agent. Antonio Brown, the Broncos have talked about it and considered it, but in the last few days, the Broncos stated they're not interested. The Broncos have a solid wide receiver crew. They have Emmanuel Sanders, which they're bringing back. They got Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, the 2 rookies from last season. So they got a decent wide receiver core. Yes, they can go out and get somebody else, not as big as Antonio Brown. Any team that's willing to trade for Antonio Brown would have to give a lot up, which would include a lot of draft picks. So the Broncos probably thought that it was better to hold on to their draft picks, get some young players, and get some more players on their team so they can rebuild and have a young roster that has the potential of making it into the playoffs this year and possibly going to another Super Bowl in the coming years. So the 2019 Broncos are definitely going to look a lot different from the 2018 Broncos. With the new head coach, with the new coaching staff, the Broncos are definitely going to make some moves throughout free agency and acquire different players. In the draft, they're going to acquire what they need as well. So looking through free agency and in the draft, the Broncos definitely want a young quarterback, which they're going to probably pursue in the draft, maybe with their 10th pick in the first round. It's going to be interesting what the Broncos do with that 10th pick. Is it a quarterback? Is it a different position? We're going to have to wait and see, but they're definitely going to look for a quarterback in the draft. Defensive line, they could look for in free agency or the draft as well. So there's definitely some holes that the Broncos need to fill, whether it's in free agency or in the draft, but they're definitely going to try to improve that defense. They're going to have to try to get another cornerback, a safety, defensive line up in the front, so the defense is a lot better and more solid like it was when we went to Super Bowl 50. So we'll have to wait and see what the Broncos do in the next coming weeks once free agency starts. The Eagles plan on not using their franchise tag on Nick Foles, and he will become a free agent. So this was an ongoing situation. Nobody really knew what the Eagles were going to do. It looked like they were going to franchise tag him, pick up his contract option, keep him on the team, trade him to another team, not franchise tag him and let him become a free agent. The Eagles ended up letting Nick Foles become a free agent. They do have quarterback Carson Wentz, so it's likely that they couldn't hold on to both quarterbacks because later on they are going to have to sign Carson Wentz to a contract, and that's definitely their franchise quarterback because they drafted him a few years ago with the second overall pick in the draft, so that's their quarterback of the future. But Nick Foles, he's definitely a great quarterback. He took the Eagles to Super Bowl 52, and that's the quarterback that won the Super Bowl for the Eagles because Carson Wentz was out for the last fourth of that season. So there's definitely going to be a lot of teams interested in Nick Foles. So watch out for teams that have a lot of money that they can spend because they have a huge salary cap, like the Jaguars, the Redskins. We don't know what's going to happen with Alex Smith, so they're definitely going to be looking for another quarterback because Alex Smith could be ready by week 1. He may not be ready until the middle of the season. He may not even play this season or ever again. So you don't know what's going to happen with the Redskins. The Jaguars and the Dolphins are definitely going to be looking for a quarterback. Every year there's always teams looking for quarterbacks, whether it's through free agency or through the draft. So it's going to depend if they want a young quarterback to build around or they want an experienced quarterback. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens there. The 49ers placed their franchise tag on kicker Robbie Gould. The 49ers are the first team this offseason to use their franchise tag. The Ravens released wide receiver Michael Crabtree. Cowboys defensive end Randy Gregory is suspended indefinitely for violating the league's substance abuse policy and the terms of his conditional reinstatement. The NFL Combine is this weekend. There's definitely a lot to watch for, especially Oklahoma quarterback Kyler Murray. Could he be the first pick in this year's NFL draft? We'll have to wait and see, but I definitely see him being picked in the first round, and he could definitely be a top 10 pick. He would definitely be a franchise quarterback, and that would be a quarterback I would want to draft if you want a young quarterback and you want to have a franchise quarterback to build around. So a lot of those teams in the top 10 are going to be interested in Kyler Murray, which includes the Denver Broncos as well. Looking at his stats and looking at his comparisons, I would compare him to Russell Wilson. They have the same height and almost the same weight. So Kyler Murray could definitely be another Russell Wilson or even a different quarterback or a better quarterback in the NFL. So I'm glad that Kyler Murray is going to pursue a career as a quarterback in the NFL. He's definitely going to have a lot of success in the NFL. He also had the option of pursuing a baseball career with the Oakland Athletics, but he decided to choose the NFL over baseball just because the NFL is probably going to work out to be better for him later on. And baseball would have been great for him as well. There's not too many athletes that can play two sports, but the schedules can kind of conflict with each other. So at the end of the day, you got to choose one or the other. But definitely in the past, there had been a lot of big name athletes that have played both football and baseball. You don't really see that now. But hopefully later on or in the future, we can see that come back once again. Right now, I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about the NBA and NHL. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to NBA basketball. LeBron James is the only player in NBA history to be in the top 10 of all-time points and assists. LeBron James moved into 5th in all-time triple-doubles and in 10th in all-time assists. Dirk Nowitzki became the fourth player in NBA history to play in 1,500 games. Only John Stockton, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and Robert Parrish are in front of Dirk Nowitzki. And in the last few days, it's looking like Dirk Nowitzki wants to play his 22nd season in the NBA. He's playing in his 21st season in the NBA right now, which is a franchise record and an NBA record of being able to play for one team your entire career. If he comes back for a 22nd year, he will break the record of playing in the NBA with one franchise team. With the Mavericks having rookie Luka Doncic and acquiring Kristaps Porzingis at the trade deadline, they definitely got a young, talented roster, and Dirk Nowitzki wants to be a part of that. We don't know if we're going to see Kristaps Porzingis this season because he's still recovering from his injury. He could return in the next few weeks, but the NBA season is coming to an end. There's only about a month and a half left before the playoffs start, so we may not see Kristaps Porzingis this season. We'll definitely see him next year in a Mavericks uniform. Also, Dwayne Wade, if you saw that Heat Warriors game from last night down in Miami, that was such a great game. And seeing Dwayne Wade make that three-pointer, which was the game winner, even Steph Curry said, Dwayne Wade don't look like he's ready to retire anytime soon. It looks like he still has a lot left in the tank. And the way he's been playing this year, it definitely looks like he could play a few more years. And even Isaiah Thomas said, Dwayne Wade, please don't retire. Even though it's going to be Dwayne Wade's one last dance this season, he's definitely going out strong and he's definitely looking great this last year in the NBA. Chris Paul moved into 8 in all-time assists. James Harden's streak of 32 consecutive 30-plus point games has ended, and it was the second longest streak in NBA history. During James Harden's streak, he averaged 41 points, 5 triple-doubles, and 4 50-plus point games. The NBA has proposed changing the draft-eligible age requirement from 19 to 18. A lot of players in college basketball right now have to play their freshman season in college basketball because they cannot enter the NBA draft and play in the NBA because they're still 18 years old. Right now you have to be 19 to play in the NBA, but the commissioner in the NBA has proposed a new deal that would change the draft eligible age requirement from 19 to 18. We're going to have to wait and see what happens here. But a lot of great players, which includes Zion Williamson in college basketball right now, would be able to go straight to the NBA instead of having to play one season in college basketball. So hopefully the age limit changes from 19 to 18. We're going to have to wait and see. Last week, Nikola Jokic turned 24. This season, he has more points than Kyrie Irving, more assists than James Harden, more rebounds than Anthony Davis, more steals than Giannis Antetokounmpo, and more triple-doubles than anyone but Russell Westbrook. Nikola Jokic is definitely a future NBA superstar for the Nuggets and in the NBA. Right now, I'm going to give you the current NBA standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, at number 1 is the Milwaukee Bucks, at number 2 is the Toronto Raptors, at number 3 is the Indiana Pacers, at number 4 is the Philadelphia 76ers, at number 5 is the Boston Celtics, at number 6 is the Brooklyn Nets, at number 7 is the Detroit Pistons, and at number 8 is the Charlotte Hornets. In the Western Conference, at number 1 is the Golden State Warriors, at number 2 is the Denver Nuggets, at number 3 is the Oklahoma City Thunder, at number 4 is the Portland Trail Blazers, at number 5 is the Houston Rockets, at number 6 is the Utah Jazz, at number 7 is the San Antonio Spurs, and at number 8 is the Los Angeles Clippers. So that's the current standings in the Eastern and Western Conference right now. With there only being a month and a half left of the regular season, a lot can change, especially in the Western Conference with the last few seeds from 5 to 8. And also the teams in 9, 10, and 11 in both conferences could slide into the top 8 of their conference. So we're going to have to wait and see, but a lot can happen in basketball in the last few weeks of the regular season. In the Week 19 NBA Power Rankings, the current top 10 NBA basketball teams are the Bucks, Warriors, Raptors, Nuggets, Thunder, Trailblazers, Rockets, 76ers, Pacers, and Celtics. Moving on now to NHL hockey. Right now I'm going to give you the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. In the NHL, the division standings go off the amount of goals the team scored, not by the wins or losses by the team. So to start off in the Eastern Conference, in the Metropolitan Division, right now the New York Islanders and Washington are tied at 79 points. And right behind them is Carolina and Pittsburgh at 74 points. In the Atlantic Division, right now Tampa Bay is leading this division at 102 points. And behind them is Boston at 83 points. In the Atlantic Division, it looks like no one's going to catch Tampa Bay. In the Western Conference and the Central Division, right now Nashville's leading this division at 79 points. And Winnipeg's right behind them at 78 points. In the Pacific Division, right now Calgary's leading this division at 89 points. And San Jose's right behind them at 82 points. So that's the current NHL standings in the Eastern and Western Conference. Right now I'm going to take a commercial break. When I come back, I will talk about college basketball, soccer, and the end of the show. Welcome back to All Sports with Gerardo. Moving on now to college basketball. In the Duke-UNC game, Zion Williamson left with a knee injury. In the first minute of the game, Zion Williamson was diagnosed with a grade 1 right knee sprain, and his status will be game to game. So we're going to have to wait and see. They're always going to check on Zion Williamson before the game, and it will be a last-minute decision that will determine if Zion Williamson will play in the game or if he's going to have to sit out that game, and they'll have to reevaluate him the next game, or they're going to have to reevaluate him before every game to determine if he's going to play in the game or not. In the Week 17 men's college basketball AP Top 10 poll, the current top 10 college basketball teams are Gonzaga, Virginia, Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, Michigan State, Tennessee, Houston, Michigan, and Marquette. Moving on now to soccer, Lionel Messi now has 650 career goals. Lionel Messi now has 50 career hat-tricks, and only Cristiano Ronaldo is in front of him with the all-time record of 51 hat-tricks. So definitely Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo are two of the best soccer players in the whole world right now. And they're definitely going to be two of the best to ever play in soccer once they retire. Moving on now to end the show. What to watch for this week in sports. The NFL Combine is this weekend. Spring training in Arizona and Florida. NBA basketball. The Nuggets. College basketball. Moving on now. On the next show, I will talk about NFL football, Major League Baseball, NBA basketball, NHL hockey, and college basketball. I hope you all have a great weekend. Tune in to the next All Sports with Gerardo show next Thursday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. I want to say thank you to everybody that listens to All Sports through Met Radio here on mymetmedia.com. Subscribe or like my pages on social media at All Sports with Gerardo. Until next time, this is Gerardo.